The Dakota People are a Native American tribe and First Nations band government in North America. They compose two of the three main subcultures of the Sioux people, and are typically divided into the Eastern Dakota and the Western Dakota. The Eastern Dakota of the Santee, who reside in the Eastern Dakotas, central Minnesota and northern Iowa. The Western Dakota are the Yankton and the Yanktonai, who reside in the Missouri River area. The Yanktonai are collectively also referred to by the endonym Wichiyena, and have in the past been erroneously classified as Nakota. Name. The word Dakota means ally in the Dakota language, and their autonyms include Dikce Akutwachasta and Dakota Oyate. Ethnic groups. The Dakota are one of the three major linguistic groups of Sioux-speaking people, the others being the Lakota and Nakota, and one of the two major ethnic groups still speaking a relatively mutually intelligible common language, Lakota. The Dakota include the following bands: Santee, including the Biwak-Thunwan, Wapeh-Thunwan and the Woodland Sioux, of which only less than 15 are all that remain in the northern woodlands of Minnesota, the Smoky Waters, Wapekut, Sisseithunwan, and the Ifankthunwan and Ifankthunwana. The majority of the Santee They have the knife live on reservations, reserves, and communities in Minnesota, Nebraska, South Dakota, North Dakota, and Canada. However, some of those in the northwoods of Minnesota remain at the Ottertail Lake and Inspiration Peak areas and were never captured and sent to the concentration camps known as reservations due to the protection of the settlers who they befriended and who protected them from the genocidal doctrine of removal enacted at the hands of the U.S. government. After the Dakota War of 1862, many Santee were sent to Crow Creek Indian Reservation. In 1864, some from the Crow Creek Reservation were sent to the Santee Sioux Reservation. Biwak and Thunwan live predominantly at the Prairie Island and Shakopee Reservations in Minnesota. Most of the Yankton live on the Yankton Indian Reservation in southeastern South Dakota. Some Yankton live on the Lower Brule Indian Reservation and Crow Creek Reservation. The Yanktonai are divided into Lower Yanktonai, who occupy the Crow Creek Reservation, and Upper Yanktonai, who live in the northern part of Standing Rock Reservation, on the Spirit Lake Reservation in central North Dakota, and in the eastern half of the Fort Peck Indian Reservation in northeastern Montana. In addition, they reside at several Canadian reserves, including Birdtail, Oak Lake, and Moose Woods. Santee Division MD Wakantanwan. Notable persons: Tau Yate Duta Sistan Wapekut. Notable persons: Inkpaduta Wapatanwan. Yanktonai Division Yanktonai Upper Yanktonai Unkpatina Lower Yanktonai. History. First contacts with Europeans. The Dakota lived in Wisconsin and Minnesota in the 17th century. By 1700, some had migrated to present-day South Dakota. Late in the 17th century, the Dakota entered into an alliance with French merchants. The French were trying to gain advantage in the struggle for the North American fur trade against the English, who had recently established the Hudson's Bay Company. Dakota War of 1862. By 1862, shortly after a failed crop the year before and a winter starvation, the federal payment was late. The local traders would not issue any more credit to the Santee, and one trader, Andrew Myrick, went so far as to say, "If they're hungry, let them eat grass." On August 17, 1862, the Dakota War began when a few Santee men murdered a white farmer and most of his family. They inspired further attacks on white settlements along the Minnesota River. The Santee attacked the trading post. Later settlers found Myrick among the dead with his mouth stuffed full of grass. On November 5, 1862 in Minnesota, in courts-martial, 303 Santee Dakota were found guilty of rape and murder of hundreds of American settlers. They were sentenced to be hanged. No attorneys or witness were allowed as a defense for the accused, and many were convicted in less than 5 minutes of court time with the judge. President Abraham Lincoln commuted the death sentence of 284 of the warriors, while signing off on the execution of 38 Santee men by hanging on December 26, 1862 in Mankato, Minnesota. 43-year-old Alexander Wilkin commanded the executions, which together amounted to the largest single mass execution in U.S. history. Afterwards, the U.S. suspended treaty annuities to the Dakota for 4 years and awarded the money to the white victims and their families. The men remanded by order of President Lincoln were sent to a prison in Iowa, where more than half died. During and after the revolt, many Santee and their kin fled Minnesota and Eastern Dakota to Canada. All settled in the James River Valley in a short-lived reservation before being forced to move to Crow Creek Reservation on the east bank of the Missouri. A few joined the Yanktonai and moved further west to join with the Lakota bands to continue the struggle against the United States military. Others were able to remain in Minnesota and the east in small reservations existing into the 21st century, including Siston, Wahpeton, Flandreau, and Devil's Lake reservations in the Dakotas. Some ended up in Nebraska, where the Santee Sioux tribe today has a reservation on the south bank of the Missouri. Those who fled to Canada now have descendants residing on 9 small Dakota reserves, 5 of which are located in Manitoba and the remaining 4 in Saskatchewan. Reserves and First Nations. In Minnesota, the treaties of Traverse des Sioux and Mendota in 1851 left the Dakota with a reservation 20 miles wide on each side of the Minnesota River. In Canada, the Canadian government recognizes the tribal community as First Nations. The land holdings of these First Nations are called Indian reserves. Modern reservations, reserves, and communities of the Sioux language. The Dakota Languages is a Mississippi Valley Siouan language belonging to the Greater Siouan-Catawban language family. It shared lexical similarities with the Stony and Assiniboine languages. Dakota is written in the Latin script and has a dictionary and grammar. Eastern Dakota Santee Siston. Western Dakota Yankton Yanktonai. Modern geographic divisions. The Dakota maintain many separate tribal governments scattered across several reservations and communities in North America. In the Dakotas, Minnesota, Nebraska, and Montana in the United States, and in Manitoba, southern Saskatchewan in Canada. The earliest known European record of the Dakota identified them in Minnesota, Iowa, and Wisconsin. After the introduction of the horse in the early 18th century, the Sioux dominated larger areas of land, from present-day central Canada to the Platte River, from Minnesota to the Yellowstone River, including the Powder River country. Santee. The Santee migrated north and westward from the southeast United States, first into Ohio, then to Minnesota. Some came up from the Santee River and Lake Marion area of South Carolina. The Santee River was named after them, and some of their ancestors' ancient earthwork mounds have survived along the portion of the dammed-up river that forms Lake Marion. In the past, they were a woodland people who thrived on hunting, fishing and farming. Migrations of Ojibwe people from the east in the 17th and 18th centuries, with muskets supplied by the French and British, pushed the Dakota further into Minnesota and west and southward. The U.S. gave the name Dakota Territory to the northern expanse west of the Mississippi River and up to its headwaters. Yanktonai, the Yanktonai, also known by the anglicized spelling Yankton and Yanktonai divisions, consist of two bands or two of the 7 council fires. According to Nasunatanga and Matanonpa in 1880, the Yanktonai divided into 2 subgroups known as the Upper Yanktonai and the Lower Yanktonai. They were involved in quarrying pipestone. The Yanktonai moved into northern Minnesota. In the 18th century, they were recorded as living in the Mamkata region of southwestern Minnesota along the Blue Earth River. Notable Dakota people. Historical Inkpaduta, Wapeku Dakota War Chief. ʻsuː, Eastern Dakota Chief. ʻsuː, Dakota author, physician and reformer. Tamaha MD Yankton Dakota Chief. Sawyer Duta MD Yankton Dakota Chief and Warrior. Wanata War Eagle Unkpatina. Wabdithanka MD Yankton Dakota Chief. Ziculus R. Yankton author, educator, musician and political activist. Contemporary Vine Deloria Jr. Standing Rock author, activist, historian and theologian. Floyd Red Crow Westerman, Kangi Duta, Sistan Wapitin actor. John Trudell, Santee activist, American Indian movement leader. Contemporary Sioux people are also listed under the tribes to which they belong, by individual tribe Assiniboine and Sioux tribes of the Fort Peck Indian Reservation. Crow Creek Sioux tribe of the Crow Creek Reservation. Flandreau Santee Sioux tribe. Lower Brule Sioux tribe of the Lower Brule Reservation. Shakopee MD Yankton Sioux community. Sistan Wapitano Yate, Standing Rock Sioux tribe of North and Amp, South Dakota. Yankton Sioux tribe of South Dakota.